my dome. Concrete walls, yeah, it's my home. Stockpile stacked with rations tight. Prep for the dark, we'll light the fight. Forage the woods, take what I need. Off-grid living, no time for greed. Barter goods in the shadow shade. Tactical steps in plans I've laid. Back to the bunker where the truth won't bend. Water and food where the road might end. Bugout bags by the door stand tall, prepared for the fall. Yeah, prepared for it all. Generators hum, a comforting sound. Blackout nights when chaos surrounds. Seeds in jars, yeah, we're growing life. Homesteading strong in a time of strife. No high-tech wires, no web to roam. Resilience beats the world unknown. Hands in the soil, hearts in the fight. Staying ready every day, every night. Back to the bunker where the truth won't bend. Water and food where the road might end. Bugout bags by the door stand tall, prepare for the fall. Yeah, prepare for it all. Back through the bunker where the truth won't bend. Water and food where the road might end. Bugout bags by the door stand tall, prepared for the fall. Yeah, prepare for it all. Prepare for it all. When central power rules the game, when thoughts controlling freedom's name, when the governed lose to government might, tell me who's got the wrong kind of Reich? He builds his cars, he mines the stars, no gulags for critics.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you guys have me 5x5. Please let me know in the chat. Let's see here. Alrighty then. First, Deanna. Number 2, Cindy Wolf. Cindy off. You are determined. Let's have West Virginia Pappy. Mike. Preston showed up. Matt's in the house. Oops is here. Yes, oops. I am still in top chat. Let me adjust that right now. Live chat activated. Let's see here. Miko Wolf is here. Ohio Valley Prepping. I got a notification, guys. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button because it's free and it does help me. Let's see. I think we're actually kind of set. Everything's like moving smoothly. A little bit of heads up, a little bit of admin note. Today the girlfriend gets her chemo pump taken off. So when it's done going and pumping like poison into her body, then an alarm will go off and it will be time for the live stream to end. So I'm going to try and knock out as much as I can while I can. Rose, good morning. Mr. J, good to see you. Good to see you guys. Oh goodness, I don't even have time for real coffee. I had to make some fake coffee. Oh, it's been quite the day. It's been quite the day. Hopefully you guys are having a good time. If you guys missed the live stream last night, I'm gonna try and start doing a Thursday night live stream. I'm gonna try and start doing a Thursday night. I'm calling it Thursday Night Survival. Blah 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 blah. Just a way to kind of hang out with other preppers, things like that. Last night we had what is it? What is it? Hudson Valley Prepper was in the live stream. And I also got Rural 2 IC to come in. I'm still trying to hunt down NC Scout, but he said that he will come on at some point. I've actually talked to him, so it's good stuff. It was good stuff. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch that, you might want to go ahead and do that. It actually was pretty good. It was pretty good. Looks like Sal showed up. What's up, Sal? Good to see you, bro. Sal Outdoors. Sal says Sal. That's Sal. That's a tough one to pronounce. All right, so what are we at here? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and good night. Potential spam. I don't want to talk to you today. Hudson Valley prepping and survival. Yes, I know that. I don't like to say it all. It's too long. Ian, good morning, my friend. Okay, so with all that said, there was a lot of talk about bug out bags and like bugging out and whether it's good and whether it's bad. But the bottom line is it's good to have the capability to bug out if you want to. Gnostic, good morning. And Tucson Pepper showed up as well. Nice. Looks like my counter is still not working. I don't know what the hell's going on with this stuff. I'm gonna have to like sit down and have a conversation with whoever makes these crazy ass things. Anywho, and just having the capability. But the bottom line is you've got to have a plan. You've got to have some skills. You got to have some tasks, some triggering events. You've got to have a. There's a lot of things that go to bugging out. And what I basically wanted to do is kind of try and create a kind of a comprehensive framework for preparing to evacuate during catastrophic events, whether it's natural or man-made, it doesn't matter, and we're going to emphasize proactive planning, situational awareness, and practical considerations to kind of try and ensure a successful bug out. Now, we're going to cover the reasons for evacuation, critical factors affecting success, and actionable steps for preparation, including some checklists and considerations for various scenarios. Who else showed up in here? Tuck V showed up. Good to see him, man. Maynard Watkins. Love you, man. Love you. All right, so why bug out? We're going to talk about some key points here. So, human history kind of demonstrates that evacuations have occurred for thousands of years, due to natural disasters, wars, pandemics. Modern challenges include widespread wildfires. Don't believe me, ask California. Rising global temperatures, prolonged conflicts, and unstable regions driven by raw aggression. Natural disasters often trigger secondary crises, such as tsunamis or even societal breakdowns. And this is going to be necessitating an immediate evacuation to ensure your personal safety. Now, keeping things in perspective, most evacuations are short term, involving less extreme conditions than those depicted in post-apocalyptic media. Now, however, challenges escalate when one disaster leads to another, such as like earthquake causing a flood. Which disrupts services and can spark civil unrest. Now, understanding this cascading effect is critical for preparing for a range of scenarios, for temporary displacements to prolonged crises. You know, um, there's basically four critical factors for a successful bug out. And the very first one is the situation. But before we do that, let's go ahead and I think I've said hi to everybody in here. West Virginia Pappy says many stores clearance, garden supplies, and tools. Perfect time to stock up bug out location. Exactly right. Bing, 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 bing. Totally true. Also, we're going to go to the poll, which I did not forget and actually had running before we went live. Looks like we got 11 votes, and the question is, what's the most critical factor for successful bug out? 73% say situational assessment and planning. 18% say managing complications effectively. 9% say choosing a secure location, and 0% say preparing for evacuation duration. All right. So now that we all know that, now that we know all that stuff, looks like Rural 2IC showed up this morning. Good morning, my friend. Good times last night. First things first, situation. So let's talk about the types of disasters. Now, obviously, there's natural disaster. This is going to be, weather-related events like hurricanes, floods, wildfires, geological disasters like earthquakes or tsunamis, and even pandemics, such as the one that we've seen in recent times. Then there's going to be man-made, which is civil unrest, arson, terrorism, biological, nuclear, cyber, economic collapse, and war, which often persists longer than natural disasters. And then there is extreme. Now, these are rare events like solar storms, EMPs, electromagnetic pulses, asteroid impacts, or super volcanic eruptions, which could lead to global displacement. Global displacement. Now, how do we think about this? We have to think about it as in situational planning. And that means that you have to assess potential disasters such as nuclear risks or economic barter systems and prepare accordingly. This is going to include learning navigation, disease prevention, self-defense, uh, and alternative escape routes, and also, planning for bugging in is also essential if evacuation routes are blocked because a lot of people are like, I'm all going to bug out. I'm going to bug in. Well, what if you are forced to bug in? A lot of people just don't think about that stuff. All right, so the next thing is going to be location. Now, the impact of the location. Okay, now, coastal areas are going to be susceptible to hurricanes, tsunamis, wildfires, and this is all going to be driven by offshore winds. And inland areas are going to be vulnerable to tornadoes, floods, man-made threats like terrorism. Urban areas, the most dangerous place on the planet, offer support but face risks of crime, violence, and power outages, with triage systems potentially leaving some without aid. And then the suburban areas, they're safer from crime, but limited in municipal support, while rural areas or wilderness areas provide sustainable resources but lack emergency services. Everybody should be thinking about location planning. If you don't have a place to go, if your plan is just to get your bag, get in your car, and drive in a direction, you don't have a plan. You just have stuff. You don't have a plan. So you might want to start thinking about location planning. And with that said, you should be analyzing local disaster risks based on historical data. You stock a secure bug out location, just like West Virginia Pappy was talking about, getting all your stuffs there because it's real cheap right now, and plan multiple evacuation routes. And also think about alternative transportation options like trains or planes. And those things should be considered as not all services may be compromised. You know what I'm saying? Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting one. And then let's roll with some things that we like to call complications. Evacuations are, they're complicated by factors such as um, disabled family members, young children, chronic medical conditions, blocked roads. These challenges require very tailored solutions to ensure safe departure. It's kind of interesting. And those considerations are, you want to ensure the group is fit for travel, maybe you want to map out some medical facilities if they're not. And also you may be forced to carry specialized equipment for disabilities. Stockpile those medications and prepare for the unique needs of children and pets as well. Some things people just don't really think about. And so, with that said, let's go ahead and check the poll. We now have 15 votes. The question is, what's the most critical factor for a successful bug out? 73% say situational assessment and planning. 13% say choose a secure location. 13% say managing complications effectively. And 0% say planning for evacuation duration. With that said, the next thing we're going to talk about is duration. So, short-term evacuations may only require a 72-hour kit, as recommended by most of the emergency authorities, FEMA, blah, 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 right? But long-term scenarios driven out by war or an economic collapse demand a more sustainable level of resources. And some of the duration considerations that you may be wanting to consider, that's a lot of words. Individuals should seek information on return timelines, ensure sustainable resources like water, purification, and foraging skills, and prepare for emotional challenges, particularly for children. Planning the return journey is as critical as the departure to avoid lingering dangers. So think about that travel back if you plan on returning. If you plan on returning. I'm gonna go to the chat here real quick, see what we got here. Good morning, everybody. Gnostic says I will not be evacuated unless it's 100% known it will be 100% lost to my property. Gotcha. So you have a plan. I like it. Let's see here. Is weather natural nowadays? West Virginia Pappy asks. I don't know, man. It's so tricky to wonder. It's so tricky to wonder. Chuck says, I'm definitely a bled. Yeah, nah, definitely disabled. Gotcha. Oh, let's see here. Ohio Valley Prepping says, yes, don't forget about your pets, 100%. Chuck says ATVs are good alternative ways to evacuate. Honda 300, 4x4, and Honda 400. Oh my God, I haven't done that in so long. Honda 400 4x4s are good ATVs to own. Yes, agreed. Let's see. Gnostic says You're just special. You're telling Tucky special. Tuck says emotional challenge. Let's see here. We have banter. We have banter in the chat. So much banter in the chat. It looks like the numbers have changed a little bit. Let's see. Let's see what the numbers have changed. We're still at, yeah, we just have more votes. We'll go over the numbers. I can't go over the numbers all the time. I can't do nothing but numbers. Rose says, may not be the best area, but our rural TG feel relatively safe here, not near interstate. Would be all cross country travel if have to move. There you go. Rolls 2 says, OVP, I told you I'm not taking my pets for a budget. I'm not taking my pets for a budget. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and move on to critical steps for a successful bug out. Step-by-step process, as promised. So obviously you've got your bug out bag, the Bob. A bug out bag is going to be essential for all uh, it's basically endorsed by emergency authorities. It requires careful selection to address diverse needs, and also, a checklist by category. Your communications, navigations. You're going to be talking about compasses, maps, walkie-talkies, solar power radios, apps for navigation and survival. Obviously, you want to do the fire/light thing. The lighter, fire steel, hand cranked flashlight, maybe. I personally love the little $1.50 headlamps you can buy at Walmart. They last forever, and you can just throw them away when you're done. And then obviously you're gonna need some food and water, canteen, purification tablets, MREs, seeds, hunting gear, and then some medical supplies, a first aid kit, medications, a first aid manual if you don't understand or know first aid, which you probably should. And don't forget your hygiene, guys, your toiletries, because it's all fun and games until you wipe your butt with a pine cone. It's not fun. Toiletries, sunscreen, toilet paper, and then obviously a little bit of shelter/clothing. A tent or a sleeping bag, rain gear, Mylar blankets, a tarp. things of that nature. And then there's always going to be some miscellaneous items people try to categorize, like duct tape, cash, survival guide, critical documents. And then don't forget your kids and your pets. They need gear too, you're going to need to adjust the gear for children, i.e., uh, child size backpacks. There's a thought right there. I think if a child can carry a pack, he should, and the weight should be no more than 20% of their body weight. It's that easy. And consider sustainable options like cloth diapers. Pets are going to require food and portable carriers. Portable carriers are nice to have if you have a vehicle to do that, but you're not going to be carrying around a portable carrier. And I don't think you're going to be carrying your dog anywhere. But anywho, if you do have a dog, make sure that your dog has its own pack so it can carry its own food and water. It's just that easy. Um, if you're talking about an urban bug out, speed and discretion are going to be vital in urban areas. You're going to need to travel light. You're going to need to try and avoid attention or detection, and you're going to need to prepare for hazards like debris, and you're going to need some gloves and some masks for that probably. And then you know you're going to need to be able to project strength to deter threats, and follow a predetermined plan rather than the crowd. Many people like to follow crowds because I think that's the way to go, but many times crowds are just running to their death. You should know exactly where you are going. I'm going to go ahead and check on the chat here before we move on to the next section. We're here. Let's see here. Take the puppy. A bug out scorpion is not a good idea. Okay. A lot of banter, a lot of banter, a lot of banter. I would probably just eat it at that point. Okay, very good, very good. Have your food sources walk by themselves until it's time to eat them. Solid plan, solid plan. Drinking some coffee. All right, let's see here. Nothing on the horizon. There we go. So, bug out vehicles. Bug out vehicles. A lot of people think they're going to get in their vehicles and go, and it's a really good plan. But vehicles are the primary escape method, but require contingency plans of their own for breakdowns and or roadblocks. Gear should be packed in backpacks for potential on foot travel. The idea is that you can grab a bag and then get in your vehicle and go. Not necessarily that it is pre-staged. Pre-staging is more like for tools, backup supplies, larger items that human beings wouldn't want to carry. All right, so while you're on the road, camping may be necessary due to delays from traffic or roadblocks. Self-defense tools are going to be critical during vulnerable stops, as exposure increases risks. If you know anything about military convoys or vehicle patrols, as they call them, mounted patrols, joke, um, you were mostly vulnerable when you stopped the vehicles. And that's why they started using IEDs on us, because then we could be vulnerable while we were driving the vehicles. But, we also need to think about bugging out on foot, because a lot of people think that they're going to grab their pack, they're going to walk out their back door and disappear into the woods forever. Some can do it, some can't, but most can't. But traveling on foot is going to be much slower. I don't know why the chat does that. It's so weird how it just scrolls that fast. That's crazy. I don't know. Do you guys seeing that? All right. Ah, hold on, guys. Sorry about that. That was the cancer center calling because they wanted to finalize some paperwork. It's always fun. It's always fun. Anywho, bugging out on foot. So traveling on foot is going to be slower and riskier due to weather and violence. It makes you more vulnerable. Vehicles may need to be abandoned. So backpacks are preferred over suitcases for mobility. I don't think anybody who's like packing up in a suitcase is pretty much just done anyway. They just don't. have a clue. They don't have a clue. Um, Now, some of the best bug out locations, they have key attributes. Now, those key attributes are what do we got? Teresa showing up, she's listening for breakfast. There you go. Looks like everybody is saying hi. Sal says, I'm not in the US, thus cars are not as necessary. That's true. It's a big country, man. It's a big country. Let's see here. Gnostic says, stroller, of course. My wife and I don't have any kids, but are still learning the old ways ourselves and are thankful we still have time to learn the while the grid is still on. There you go. I was actually doing research today on grid down scenarios, and even artificial intelligence does not want to you have to really argue with it, and it does not want to realize the death toll that would happen if the grid went down here in the United States. But as usual, I won, and it may be an upcoming video, so we will see. So with that said, getting back on track, getting back on track. So some key attributes to your bug out location, things to think about. Security, defendable and secure when unoccupied. You often see where some kids are walking through the woods, they find this shed, it's got a lock on it, they decide to break it open. Oh my God, it's full of ATVs, but and then I'm gonna be so prepared. I'm gonna have all my keys in the ATVs already, blah blah blah. And next thing you know, your ATVs are gone. You find them, freaking 30 miles away in the dirt where they ran out of gas and the kids were done with them. You know what I'm saying? You can only find stolen ATVs at the edge of civilization, because that's where the kids will dump them. Anyway, so make sure that your bug out location has some form of security, that it is defendable and secure when not occupied. Camouflage, hidden to avoid detection. If you can camouflage your bug out location, the better it's going to be. Obviously, sometimes that's not smart to do. Other times it is. So know your situation. Water. You need to make sure that your bug out location has access to natural water sources if possible. It's kind of important. It's kind of like it's the first leg in the pillars of preparedness, guys. Hygiene, facilities for sanitation and bathing. Yeah, you probably need to have at the minimum, dig a spot to dig out a toilet. You know what I'm saying? And it needs to have all season suitability, basically shelter for all weather conditions, because you don't know when stuff's going to go bad. It's just that easy. Also, you're going to need to have some food resources, opportunities for hunting, fishing, foraging, and gardening if possible. And then, power and heat, alternative energy sources like solar or firewood. And then understand the risks, because chaos immediately following a disaster increases threats before reaching the location. Property security measures are going to be pretty essential. They're going to be pretty essential. All right, so I'm going to go and check the poll here real quick. What are we at here? 20 votes, 65% say situational assessment and planning, 20% say managing uh, complications effectively, 15% say choose a secure location, and 0% say preparing for evacuation duration. Let's see here. Going to the chat. I had my breakfast around 3.5 hours ago. Okay. Banter, banter, banter. Matt says, I bought a dual sport motorcycle for alternative motor transportation. Smart man, smart man. And HVPS, of course, you're one of the four horsemen. Hudson Valley Preparedness and Survival just showed up. There he is. One of my guests from last night. Good talk last night. Good talk. He says, if I can't bug out via vehicle, I'm going via horseback, which is not a bad plan to go primary. You know what I'm saying? It's not a bad plan to go primary. You just can't carry as much stuff. Let's see. He also says real SHTF wild game will be hunted to near extinction in a year or less. Absolutely. It actually happened during the Great Depression, where deer were hunted almost to extinction in North America. A lot of people don't know that. All right. So if no bug out location exists, because we have to go over all of our options, there are different options that we should think about, like public lands, extended stay hotels, campgrounds, vehicles, or even abandoned sites like mines or warehouses. For short term, it's short term high risk in those areas, but they provide shelter and they're defendable. And then we need to look at some of the challenges that we're going to face. With these particular types of locations, because they're temporary, they may also attract others. And lack of law enforcement, increasing danger over time. Now, when we think about this, we have to remember that it won't be easy. Evacuations are inherently chaotic, requiring anticipation and preparation. And while some may only need to bug in temporarily, which is pretty much the plan for 99.9% of the people on the planet, when the triggers get flicked, history shows that evacuations are an inevitable reality in times of chaos. Now, if we do some analysis, maybe go over some of the insights of the situation, I think that we're going to find some information out here that we may or may not know, but I always think that it's good to cover all of our bases. But before we do that, I think it's important that everybody knows and understands that if you love your country, put in number one in the chat. Okay, I'm going to drink some coffee. I'm going to talk some smack. I'm going to read you some crap because this is an educational channel and that's the way it is. But of course, we have to pay the bills. And how do we do that? We go to the mighty Refuge Medical. Guys, listen, I've been talking about Refuge Metal since Christ Refuge Metal. I bet you TJ would love that. Refuge Metal instead of Refuge Medical. Because if you guys didn't know that, he's a death metal drummer. Not a joke. Pretty crazy shit. Anyhow, Refuge Medical, all American. Everything about it is American. I mean, like everything. It's like, oh, the fiber is Chinese. No, it's not. It's nylon. It's woven from the butts of American tarantulas. You know what I'm saying? Everything about this company is American, and that's absolutely why I support it. And if you got to buy something that you need to put on the shelf that absolutely 100% of the time will work right out of the box, this is the company. It's just that easy. Also, if you want to save a little money because yeah, inflation, there's no inflation, but the price of beef is still $10 a pound. And so if you want to save a little bit of money, there's a code down there right below my manly beard, local prepper, all one word, where you can save 15% off of everything that you buy there. And yeah, it's gonna be a pretty awesome thing because I have all of their trash myself. All right, guys, let's go ahead and be done with that. I see all the ones. Everybody pay the bills. Love your country. That's your government. Here we go. All right. Oh my God, the chat worked. Holy shnikes, the chat freaking worked. Scary stuff. Let's see here. Government, not so much. I know, right, man? Okay, so analysis and insights. Analysis and insights. And if you guys notice that there are some of you that actually have the fancy America number ones, that's because they're members and membership has its privileges. All right, so let's see here. Strengths. You know, um, I think it's important that we address a broad spectrum of scenarios and provide actionable checklists for those beginners out there and experienced individuals as well, because even experienced individuals understand the power of a checklist. It's that easy. If you are relying on your memory to do everything that you need to do, you will fail. That was good. All right. We're going to emphasize some realistic planning. We're going to acknowledge that most evacuations are short term and less extreme than the media will portray them. Now, we also need to consider diverse needs like, children, pets, disabilities, and environments, the urban, rural, wilderness thing we were just talking about. And then also we need to talk about some weaknesses, some if some advice lacks specific steps, I'll be honest with you, requiring further research, which is why you come here for the education. And, extreme scenarios receive less focus, with limiting guidance on rare, high impact events. Now, it assumes access to resources like vehicles or bug out locations, which may not be feasible for everyone. So these are definitely things to think about. Now, some noticeable gaps, or should I say notable gaps? psychological preparedness, and that's going to be, it's underexplored, despite the emotional tolls of evacuations. Also, community coordination is absent, though it could be critical in urban settings. Even legal considerations such as weapons, transportation, or land use, they're almost never addressed when people talk about bugging out. Because the reality is that we're a pretty resilient country, and even if 90% of us get all, wiped away in the first 9 months of a grid down scenario, you know what I'm saying? The other 10% are still going to be reestablishing the rule of law. So they're going to remember you did some dirty stuff. So pay attention to some of the considerations. Now, some current relevance, um, you know, um, I think it's important that things kind of remain pertinent among ongoing climate changes, because whether we like it or not, we do experience climate change. It's just not as dramatic as those in or freaky people land want you to believe. But there are issues. We've noticed the weather's weird. We've got some geopolitical tensions and even some economic uncertainties. Now, you know, emerging threats like cyber attack or AI-driven disruptions warrant additional considerations. So these are all, it's like, this is survival is a thinking man's game. It's that easy. If you guys didn't know that, now you do. Now, some expanding recommendations, to enhance preparedness. You should adopt some of these strategies I'm about to throw at you, and they're kind of tailored to their circumstances. And think about the evolving threats landscape uh, for this year. For this year, one, maybe customize your plan. So an explanation of that would be, a one size fits all approach is it's in, it's like in dynamic disaster scenarios, tailoring a bug out plan to specific risks like floods in coastal areas, earthquakes in seismic zones, and even family needs like medical conditions, young children, that kind of stuff. This is going to ensure your resilience and your effectiveness, and even some action steps. Maybe research local disaster history using the government databases that are all available through like FEMA and the USGS service, or USGS, which is USG service, to identify some of the likely threats in your area. Create a family profile detailing age, health conditions, and mobility limitations in order to customize your gear and routines. And also, conduct a home inventory to prioritize essential items for evacuation, kind of balancing weight as necessary. There's a lot to really think about when we think about bugging out, because it's more than just grabbing your bag and walking out the door. That is the final result. So I'm going to go to the chat here real quick. Let's see here. Cindy says, alrighty, man, woman are chosen natural cloth diapers over plastic and chemicals more than 20 years for 30 years. Yeah, I mean, you can reuse them. You just wash them out. It's just like, it's that easy. Cloth diapers work. Cloth diapers work. West Virginia Pappy says noise and light control depending on your circumstances. True. Rose says, alrighty, as I've said in the past, I'm old as dirt. My children were raised on cloth even when took a trip to Denmark in 86. Had a few for the flight, but stayed in my home, had laundry available. There you go. Let's see here. Sal says, just some political concerns? It's a clown world out there. Hey, Pilgrim, good to see you, man. Let's see here. And by the way, Pilgrim was like number two, I believe. I think Pilgrim was number two. Number two. All right, let's see here. I don't think the numbers have actually changed. We got more votes, but the numbers didn't actually change. We still have preparing for evacuation duration as 0%. I'll throw that out there as a little bit of an insight. Nobody's like, I don't need to plan for this. But I am talking about a priority, so I think that's more important. So okay, so the next thing is invest in skills, guys. Skills, 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 skills. Give you a quick explanation. Gear alone cannot sustain long-term survival. Let me say that again. Gear alone cannot sustain long-term survival. Skills like navigation, water purification, and self-defense are lightweight, portable, and invaluable, especially in extreme scenarios where resources are scarce. Some of your action steps: enroll in survival courses. Just do it. The Red Cross first aid, wilderness survival shops, to learn navigation with a compass, fire starting, basic medical care. And also, you might want to think about practicing foraging. It's what foraging, if I have had a list, is at the bottom of my list of things to master, but it's there because it should be at the top of my list and to be concerned about. I would love to be able to forage without thinking I'm going to die. So practice foraging and gardening, in local environments to understand edible plants and sustainable food sources. Train in self-defense. A lot we don't talk about that much on this channel, and for good reason. You guys, if you know me, you know me. But train in self-defense. You should also include non-lethal options like pepper spray, non-lethal munitions, and such, and also familiarize yourself with any firearms carried. Ensure compliance with local laws. Disclaimer activated. Pleasant Valley prepping and survival. Gotta run. Stay safe. We'll talk to you later, brosif. All right. So, third thing, plan for contingencies. You know, uh, explanation. Disasters disrupt plans. Disasters disrupt plans. Isn't that special? From blocked roads to unexpected injuries, multiple routes and backup destinations increase resilience, while preparing for both short and long-term scenarios ensures adaptability. Planning for both short and long-term scenarios. Hint, hint. Some action steps. Map at least 3 evacuation routes using physical maps and apps, like maybe like Gaia GPS, accounting for potential obstacles like flooded roads or urban unrest. Identify multiple bug out locations, such as a relative's home, public lands, or campgrounds, and verify their safety via news or local contacts. You also want to include sustainable gear, things like water filters and even maybe even some seeds in your bug out bag for extended stays. And practice using these tools in advance. In advance. Let's see. Are bear traps considered non-lethal? Yeah, they are. If you want to carry around a bear trap with you, good on you, man. Good on you. All right. So, number 4, urban specific strategies, because there's people that live in urban environments. I'm stuck in one myself right now, a little bit anyway. But urban environments pose unique challenges, including dense population, crime, and infrastructure failures. Speed, discretion, and awareness are critical to avoid becoming a target. And some of the action steps that you can take are to pack lightweight, uh, you know, have concealable gear, compact butt packs, dust masks, maybe to navigate debris-filled streets quickly. Also monitor real time. And, honestly, guys, if you guys live in the city and you're trying to escape the city and you don't have like a pair of lightweight or even heavyweight gloves, if you don't have a pair of like work gloves, you're an idiot. Because you're going to need to be able to do some parkour type stuff if necessary. You're going to be able to need to move things. You're going to need to be able to like possibly push a car or even open a car. You know what I'm saying? That you're not familiar opening, and you're just going to need that extra tactile feel and control and level of safety that a pair of good work gloves offer you. So I think that's something you should definitely have. All right. So also you're going to want to monitor real-time updates via radios or apps like Citizen to avoid high-risk areas like looting zones and such. And obviously people talk about it, but you should probably try and figure out how to practice gray man tactics, such as wearing neutral clothing and avoid flashy items to blend into crowds and deter attention. There's nothing like a hoodie and a black backpack to make people remember who you are. And then, let's talk a little bit about affordable preparedness. Let me see where I am on my timeline here and find out how much more we have left. Yeah, we're cruising. I think we're about right. Affordable preparedness, there's going to be financial constraints and they should not prevent preparedness. Prioritizing essentials and building resources gradually make bug out planning accessible to all people. And some of the action steps, start with a basic 72-hour kit, water, food, and first aid, or security. And add items monthly, sourcing affordable gear from thrift stores or discount retailers. Hit that thumbs up button because it helps. Use public lands or nearby parks as temporary bug out locations, researching regulations via government websites. And Also, it's the BLM. It's not Black Lives Matter. It's the Bureau of Land Management, BLM.gov. And also, you can repurpose household items like trash bags for rain protection, candles for light. And this is going to help to reduce cost while maintaining functionality. And so, the next subject is going to be to stay updated. And with that being updated, I'm going to go to the chat here real quick because I see it's moving. Let's see here. Rose says, not just disasters, life in general gets in the way when traveling. Today, we'll run into detours, so I have to be flexible to move on. Yes, yes. Matt says, I'm a commercial truck driver. In addition to my road bag and GPS unit, I have the tried and true, the tried and true road atlas. Yes, absolutely. And by the way, guys, having an updated road atlas is actually pretty smart because I have a pile of road atlases for every year that like I updated my road atlas. They're like right over there. Uh, but when they build new roads, it's good to know where all the new roads are. It's kind of like sharpening your knife, man. Sal says, looting shouldn't be the game plan, but it will be for others, so you must be aware of it. Let's see here. What do you consider to be a good work gloves? I like lightweight gloves. They're normally because I can't stand. It really depends on what I have. You know what I'm saying? If I'm talking about particularly like what I just referenced, like having a pair of gloves to wear and when you're bugging out, then I definitely want to go with the lightweight work gloves. Generally, they have a leather palm, but the rest is nylon. They probably have leather around the fingers, and and they have like nylon right here. They're just super lightweight. I think that that's better to have than a standard leather work glove. I enjoy very worn in leather work gloves, but that's for like working with metal and things like that. Whereas the dexterity is not really an issue. All right, hold on a second. I think I'm getting my communications with the girlfriend. Pump weird. Okay. All right, guys. Unfortunately, that's going to be about it for today. I have to cut you 15 minutes short. I apologize. But, when cancer calls, you got to run. All right, guys. I want to thank you guys for hanging out here. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up on the way out the door. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. I may do a live stream this weekend. And yeah, we'll see you when we see you. Bye bye.